I think my partner is proposing today. I know we're used to doom and gloom on this sub, but I honestly just want to shout this from the rooftops, in a good way. But I don't want to gossip to anyone I know in person about this, because you can never be 100% sure, and also I don't want it to get back to him that I've clocked all the signs. He's not great at big romance, which is perfect for me as I find it a little embarrassing, but he's tried to be so sneaky, and so thoughtful as well, and I don't want to ruin this for him. A little, long, backstory. My partner, Dee, and I have been together for just over 3 years, but have known each other for 9. When we first met, at work, I was trapped in an abusive relationship and also pregnant, so obviously nothing happened physically and he would never have tried to change that as knew how bad my ex-husband was, so as far as he was concerned I was happily starting my own family. But we instantly clicked as friends and honestly I think it only took me about a week to realize I was falling for him in a non-platonic way. Little did I know that Dee felt the same way, but he's the most oblivious person when it comes to knowing that someone likes him in that way. He later told me that had he known everything, he'd have had me out of the situation I was in and moved in with him in a heartbeat, and ready to raise my now 8-year-old daughter as his own. I had a complicated pregnancy towards the end, so I wasn't at work for the last few months of it and my ex made me quit my job when I should have returned after maternity leave. Me and Dee tried to stay in contact, but I was aware that I had inappropriate feelings for him and I was terrified that my ex would somehow find this out and fly off the handle and hurt me, so I purposefully let our communication dwindle to nothing after I knew I wouldn't be returning to work, even though it hurt. I think I gaslit myself into thinking that now that we had a baby, my ex would magically be better and we'd be one happy family. I put the whole thing with Dee down to him just being the one that got away, and I thought about him very often. Dee and I spoke a couple of times over the next 5 or so years, and once I learned that he was in a relationship and seemed happy, any hope I had that I could escape my abusive ex and catch Dee was out the window. It felt pointless to break up the family I had for nothing. Again, I gaslit myself that it wasn't as bad as it was, and put myself into the staying together for the kids no matter what mindset. I've now shaken that off completely and in no way condone staying in an abusive relationship regardless of whether or not there are kids involved. So I continued on, was coerced into a marriage I knew I didn't want. And then into having another baby which my ex of course used to control me even more. Dee's relationship lasted as well, and he and his now ex had 2 children and bought a house together. Happiness for myself seemed like a pipe dream by this point, and all I could do was pour all my love into my children and walk as carefully as possible around the sea of eggshells that constantly surrounded my ex. In 2022, everything changed. Out of nowhere, my ex left one random Tuesday morning, of course blaming me and saying that marriage and children were too restrictive for him. This was of course a lie. It turns out he was cheating, but he tried to secretly move in with her because he didn't want any consequences for his actions. He left me in a mountain of debt that he'd built up in my name without my knowledge. I had no way to provide solely for myself and my children, and he deliberately quit his job so he didn't have to pay any child support. He also didn't care about seeing our children, but to be honest I was glad about that as he barely knew how to change a nappy, and I didn't want his constant anger taken out on our children with Noon there to protect them. The initial shock and upset about the sudden change honestly only took about 5 hours to get over, and after that I was actually just grateful that he wasn't there anymore. I figured out how to be self-sufficient, and actually started to be proud of myself for how I parented as a newly single mother and dealt with the whole situation. I'm not going to lie, Dee started playing on my mind almost immediately after my ex left. We hadn't caught up in a while, and he's barely active on social media so I had no idea what his situation was. 2 months after my ex left, Dee messaged me out of the blue. He'd seen that my relationship status on Facebook had changed, and he was checking if I was okay. I was honest with him then about how bad the relationship had been, and he was pretty horrified. He also shared that he and his ex had split up a few months after their second child was born, because she had been financially and emotionally manipulative since their first child arrived, and after their second was born, she was on the verge of psychotic, so he made sure that she was getting the care she needed for the sake of his children, but knew he couldn't stay with her. Turns out, they'd split only a few days before my ex and I did. Dee and I agreed to meet up, and the instant connection practically slapped me in the face so minute I saw him. 5 years without seeing each other, with all those pent-up feelings, all bubbled to the surface at once in that moment. And to my shock, he seemed to be flirting with me. Things escalated from there, especially when we both admitted that we had big feelings for each other, and the attraction was almost palpable, but we did agree that our friendship was the most important thing that we didn't want to lose again, and especially with us both having only come out of long-term relationships where children were involved, we'd keep the physical aspect of things casual for a time and see how it went. Certainly no introducing each other to our respective children as being together or anything like that. But we both fell hard and fast for each other, and we knew that, so after a few months we made things official. It all felt like a dream come true. It actually took me some time to adjust to how he treated me. He is of course an amazing partner, but I was so used to being treated like S***T that this caught me off guard. He taught me how to love myself through loving me as much as he does. He taught me to stop blaming myself for my ex's abuse. He's been, from the moment he met them, amazing with my children. They decided on their own to call him Dad after around a year because he was so present and good to all of us, and because my oldest has been on a campaign to get us married since she met him LOL, and I can see what a wonderful dad he is to his own children, who I absolutely adore, as well. I honestly couldn't believe, and still can't most of the time now, that life can be like this. That the everyday mundane can feel like an adventure, and that loving security is the best feeling in the world. We talked about how we wanted our future to look, and we knew that we wanted to get married. We also knew that we'd like to have a child of our own, but this was highly unlikely due to some of my own fertility problems, so this was more of a wish than a plan. Then, just before Christmas last year, we found out that we're having a baby due this August. She is the biggest miracle, and the whole family is ecstatic and can't wait to meet our baby girl. Things are so good, it feels surreal at this point. And yes, of course, like every normal couple, we have disagreements, but they never escalate to arguments. I've never heard him shout or be truly angry. We just communicate before anything reaches breaking point and solve things together. So, that brings us to today. About a year ago, Dee bought me a promise ring and had my engagement ring finger measured just in case at the same time. He's mysteriously gone to my MIL's house today to pick up some stuff and asked me if I'd like to go for a walk later. Which is odd because we never really plan walks, we just go. He said he wants to walk around a local nature reserve, which coincidentally, is where we had our first meet-up 3 years ago, and also our first kiss. He also paid for me to have my nails done a few days ago, just because, again, unusual as normally I'll have my nails done a couple of times a year for my birthday and Christmas, and I'll just take myself as a gift/self-care. So, there you go. Everything is adding up, and I really hope I'm not building myself up for nothing. I can't see any part of the rest of my life without this wonderful man in it. Thank you if you've read this far and sorry for the long post. I'm not really expecting anyone to read this, or care lol, I just needed to blurt it out somewhere. Update. Update for the lovely kind strangers who asked me to. He did it, we're engaged. He took me down the same route that we walked down 3 years ago, and we were walking for a while so I was beginning to wonder if I was wrong, but then he started to get all nervous and I realized we were coming up to the bridge which looks over the water where we stopped and had our first kiss. It just felt like a much longer walk because I'm heavily pregnant now lol, but we got there eventually and he gave me a very nervous kiss and then got down on one knee, said some truly lovely things, and showed me the absolutely gorgeous ring that he'd picked out. I struggled to say yes just because I was hormonally sobbing by this point, but we already knew what my answer would be. I feel like the luckiest woman on the planet.